US politicians have been debating a bill that would give the president authority to ban apps, including TikTok. US intelligence agencies believe the video sharing platform is a national security risk because the Chinese government could have access to user data. TikTok has around 100 million users in the US alone. The app has already been banned from government-issued phones in America, Canada and the European Parliament. Heidi Jo Castro has more on this now from Washington, D.C.
The regulations, the protections that this bill is designed to strip from TikTok are frankly the only thing that stand between the social media app and the previous attempts to ban it across the United States, of course, by the Trump administration. What this bill does is it would allow the current presidential administration, Joe Biden, to ban TikTok across the nation if it is determined that the app is sharing private user data with anyone who is involved or controlled by China or the Chinese government. This is a Republican-sponsored bill. Its sponsor called TikTok a Trojan horse, saying that it can be turned to spy on Americans. And there have been a few Democrats on this committee, though, who have voiced that this proposal is too broad, and for that reason, they are opposed to it. TikTok and its spokesperson is trying to defend itself. They point to measures taken within the last 2 years to try to make safeguards, for example, storing all Americans' user data and servers in the United States, not within China. And in fact, there has been an ongoing lobbying effort from TikTok here in Capitol Hill and at the White House to work out a deal. And that still might be the case where the social media app is allowed to continue its operations in the U.S.
Well, meanwhile, China says the ban by the U.S. is an abuse of state power.
As
the world's top superpower, how unsure of itself can the US be to fear a young people's favorite app to such a degree? The US has been overstretching the concept of national security and abusing state power to suppress other countries' companies. We firmly oppose those wrong actions. The US government should respect the principles of market economy and fair competition.
Well, another US congressional committee has held hearings on what it calls the Chinese Communist Party's threat to America. In the first session, witnesses testified on China's influence on technology, aggression towards Taiwan, and human rights abuses. The committee chair said China's ruling party was laser-focused on a totalitarian future.
We may call this a strategic competition, but it's not a polite tennis match. This is an existential struggle over what life will look like in the 21st century. And the most fundamental freedoms are at stake.
Let's speak to Joseph Mahoney now. He's a professor of politics and international relations at East China Normal University. He joins us from Shanghai. Welcome to the program. So, to what extent are US fears over TikTok justified in your view?
Well, the fact of the matter is there's no evidence that TikTok or previously other Chinese tech companies like Huawei have ever posed real security threats to the U.S. or anyone else. Rather, what we've seen is that the U.S. has advanced this anti-China narrative step by step in global media, that China needs to be feared and countered, even falsely accusing China of genocide, of deliberately unleashing COVID-19, of a communist plot to rule the world. And this has induced fear that Chinese tech companies might in the future be weaponized against the U.S. and others. But, given this logic, what firm is safe? What Chinese company or indeed any other company around the world is safe? And in fact, what Chinese industry can't be weaponized if we really want to get creative about it, if we really want to go down that hysterical path. Consequently, this is the tip of a much bigger Cold War iceberg. Second, this is part of America's broader efforts to foster tech decoupling, which in a tech and information-driven global economy is really about subdividing the world into respective spheres of influence and trying to ensure that China's sphere is very small and contained. So we can see this fits within a broader containment strategy that includes selling nuclear submarines to Australia, stationing nuclear-capable bombers there, putting U.S. military personnel in Taiwan, upgrading weapons systems in South Korea, trying to advance the Indo-Pacific and AUKUS concepts, and still trying to extend NATO to counter China. Now, why now, right? Because Biden is very good at sequencing. He induced hysteria over a weather balloon to create fear and a talking point for his State of the Union speech, where he mentioned China by name more than any other country, including more than he mentioned the U.S. And he did so ahead of NATO meetings in Brussels. And now he faces a divided Congress where the only bipartisanship taking place is on the new anti-China committee in the House. In short, China has been making incredible progress and development while the U.S. has for decades been victimized by its own poor governance and growing polarization. Now, the U.S. remains unable to muster bipartisan support for addressing much needed self-reforms and redevelopment. Instead, the one thing they can agree on is scapegoating China for America's problems.
Okay, so given what you say then, how is the Chinese leadership likely to react to these kind of issues then? For example, TikTok?
Well, I think what we've heard very clearly from the Chinese leadership is precisely how they are reacting, that the U.S. is abusing state power to overextend its security concepts, and doing so in ways that very explicitly, very deliberately try to knock down Chinese technological development, and all in order to promote an unfair playing field, which has existed for decades and that China has struggled to overcome. And we see this not just with this effort, but with the CHIPS legislation last year. And before that, the U.S. instigated trade war against China.
OK, we'll leave it there. Joseph Mahoney, we very much appreciate your time here on Al Jazeera. Thank you.